What is up, everybody, and welcome back to yet another live stream, episode number 105 of the Camera Junkie live stream. And if it's your first time here, welcome. My name's Lewis, also known as Mr. Camera Junkie. Please make sure to introduce yourself in the chat to the Camera Junkie crew so you could get the nice Camera Junkie welcome. And with that being said, this is episode number 105. So that means 105 consecutive weeks of the Camera Junkie live stream coming to you every Saturday night live from Miami. And with that being said, let's say what's up to the Camera Junkie crew to get things started right off the bat. We have Grow with Kevin, and he's saying happy birthday to Aiden. Oh, this once again. Let's bring this up to size. And how are you doing, Kevin? Thanks for hanging out. He's saying happy birthday to Mr. Aiden. Yeah, and today is December the 3rd, and it also happens to be Mr. Prince Aiden's birthday. Yeah, he's the reason why I do what I do. And I was able, as like many of my other days, to be able to spend the day with such an amazing little man, and I'm grateful for all the time that I'm able to spend with him. So yes, happy birthday to Aiden. I try to give him everything that he wants every single day, and yet today he got a couple of little extra gifts. So he's been playing with those and enjoying them, and as always, I've just been enjoying him and his presence. And so yeah, happy birthday to Aiden. You're 7 years ago, you crashed a party, and you've changed my life. So I'm very grateful for everything that little person has taught me in his short 7 years of life. So, all right, let's see. We also have the Paul Duncan, Mr. Moderator, in the house saying what's up to the fam. John is also hanging out. Robert is here saying hey to the fam. Dr. Sev is also here saying hello to everyone. What's going on? There we go. All right. And he's saying happy birthday to the boss. Yes, the boss man, the one that makes me do what I do. All right. And with that being said, today I am going to be podcasting about whether you should upgrade your camera or your computer, your camera. Either way, I'm just going to give you some of my thoughts as far as, as always, English, Lewis. As I always say, upgrade your skills before your gear. But your gear does have a lot to do with it. But we often sometimes neglect the gear that we're going to need because of the gear that we want. So that's what I'm going to touch base on in a little bit. And I'll be getting to that in just a sec. Here, just checking in, says, awesome. Happy birthday to the baby boy. He's a December baby born, the best month of the year. Well, like I said, I don't really worry about all the other months. I just worry about my little man, and the fact that he crashed a party in December, I'm going to have to concur with that comment. I'm going to have to agree. So, and Diego's also here saying happy birthday, saying hello to everyone and happy birthday, and cheers from Brazil. Look at that. We're making this international, the live stream. All right. Well, as always, you know that I'm just going to get into it. As soon as I'm done with the, podcasting portion of it, I'm going to finish it off with C.I.T.Y.S.G.A.W, and then I'm going to get right back to the chat to see, what's going on with everyone. If you happen to have a question, as I'm on my soliloquy, I'm not really going to be paying attention to the chat just so that I can get my thoughts out. And then just please put a Q colon in front of any questions that you might have, and I'll get to them as soon as I'm done with that aspect. All right, just double checking on aiding, and let me get something to drink real quick. All right, and with the music finishing off right there, I'm gonna get started, right? In 5, 4. What's up and welcome to the Camera Junkie Podcast. My name's Lewis, also known as Mr. Camera Junkie. Thank you for hanging out with me. And today we're going to be talking about upgrading your gear after you've upgraded your skills. But what is the correct gear to upgrade? Now, a lot of us as photographers and videographers, we are absolutely, enamored with GAS, or gear acquisition syndrome. And all of these companies, whether you're with Sony, Canon, Nikon, Fuji, etc., they're constantly upgrading their equipment to provide the latest and greatest and the latest technology when it comes to both camera bodies and lenses and optics. But a lot of times, as I mentioned, to upgrade your skills before your gear, is that for pretty much the past 10 years, a lot of these camera companies have been producing really, really good equipment. And what I've learned in my experiences is that I had to also upgrade my editing skills to be on par with my photography skills, to bring the entire package together. Because even if the camera that you have in your hand has the ability to take amazing photos, for you to have a final finished product, you're going to have to, manipulate it a bit after you, click on the shutter. So what I've learned was that I had to dedicate as much time to learning the editing process as much as the learning while having fun doing photography. And that was to be able to take my own final product to what I would consider the next level. So I do, let me say this again. I recognize the value in the gear that we put as far as camera bodies and lenses. But I also have to emphasize the amount of purchases or the quality of equipment that we use to edit. So prior to me moving to the Apple ecosystem, I was editing my photos through Photoshop on a Windows computer. And even though I thought my photos looked good, there was always a missing aspect of it. And that had to do with the color calibration. Now, if you're not familiar with color calibration, you could be in for a bit of shock with me telling you that a lot of the monitors that you're actually seeing the images on are not true to life or true to image, as we would like to say when it comes to reproducing it. So when it comes to providing a deliverable or a finished product to a client, I was having a lot of trouble doing my editing process on a Windows machine. And this had to do with the lack of color calibration from my monitor and my video graphics card on my computer. And that was really holding back a lot of my results or my final results. So what I ended up doing was investing in an Apple computer, and I invested in a MacBook Pro 2013, and that was mostly because it was going to be like two birds with one stone. It was going to put me in an entirely different ecosystem as far as programs and the way that they worked with my computer for my editing needs, but also had a built-in color calibrated monitor that really represented much better what I was trying to get as my final product. So that simple change in equipment for my editing process was the first step that I had when it came to upgrading my post-process skill set. And that opened up a flurry of advantages for my workflow. And that has nothing to do with the actual, computer itself, because in that time I was still dealing with the Intel based computers. So it wasn't like I was mentioning even like the latest M1 silicone computers that are available now, but I'll get to that in just a bit. And just having the ability to color correct my images and reference them easily to my iPhone to see what the final image would come back to. And, just a little bit of advice, I would actually use iPads and iPhones to check my work, for the simple reason that was 90% of the screens that people were going to be reviewing my work on. They were going to be looking at it either through an iPad or an iPhone when I was sending them the links to check on the photography. So with that, I was able to dramatically increase the quality of my final results, that I instantly started having people thinking and asking me if I had upgraded my camera, if I had upgraded my lens, because the quality of work then jumped by leaps and bounds, and yet I was still using the same old camera and the same old lenses, because I decided to invest in myself and learn the editing techniques, and actually invested in the equipment that allowed me to move forward with my newfound education as far as editing went. And that was the next step that actually elevated my work to the level where I wanted to, where people started not telling me that my photos were good and just taking the deliverables as is. But I actually started noticing that once I started giving people these images, they started using them themselves to represent them on all of the online platforms. And by this, I mean that you would see them change their Facebook profile, their Twitter profile, and every other social media handle that they have with the latest photos that you just gave to them, because in their hearts, they feel that that's the best representation of themselves that they can get. And that is the difference of knowing that somebody appreciates your work from somebody telling you that they appreciate your work. It's what do they do with it once you actually give them the final results. And for that is why I say that you might want to look into upgrading your hardware and your computer to better suit your needs and better help with your workflow than it would buying the latest and greatest camera. And now this is where I'm gonna take it to even another step forward, which is if you have the ability and you are in the Apple ecosystem like I am myself, I would also highly recommend you moving away from the Intel based processors and already start looking at anything in the new Apple silicone or the M1 ecosystem. The speed in production is so dramatic compared to the older Intel generated, hardware, that I just stayed dumbfounded, because the computers are moving so fast that I was able to actually get a 2020 MacBook Air and have that completely replace my 2013 MacBook Pro, because of how efficient this laptop works. And now that I'm completely invested in this ecosystem, I have a Mac Studio that is like my main workhorse for all the things. But then whenever I want portability, I have my MacBook Air that is in constant communication, and it's just a perfect addition to what I already have going. So why do I mention this? Is because there is a level of, hardware acceleration or software acceleration that's going to be needed for all the new cameras that we eventually do want to get. because as a camera junkie, I will be the last one to tell you to not buy the latest and greatest camera if you have the ability to do so. But I just want you to be like blatantly aware that purchasing the latest, greatest camera is also going to come with a computer hardware cost and a memory card cost to get the best production that you can out of this new hardware, because there's no reason for you to buy a $6,000-7,000 Sony Alpha 1 camera and not invest another $500-600 on that, you know, what is that Express Type A, the C.I.T.Y.S.G.A.W Express Type A card to go with it, so that you can unlock all the potential out of that camera. Because if you're gonna buy that and then start using standard SD cards, which is gonna hinder the performance of the camera because it can't offload that data fast enough, then there's no reason for you to invest in that camera. And then to take it to the next step, that if you don't have the proper computer to handle the new codecs, the new file sizes, everyone talks about the Sony A7R5 that just came out, and that's a 61.1 megapixel, which has, to my understanding, over 120 megabyte raw file for every image that you snap out of that camera. Now there's different versions to compress the raw files so that you can get smaller file sizes, but understand that that's the capacity of information that you're taking with these new machines. And then your computer is going to have to be up to par to handle that, to be able to edit it, whether it be photography or video. So my conclusion is that we all get caught up in the latest camera body, the most amazing fast lens. But if you don't have a complete understanding of the entire infrastructure that you're going to need to support this new high speed, latest and greatest camera, then I would suggest you look into that first and have a computer that can handle what's yet to come, so that anything that you desire, you are already ready for. So, hope that helps. That's my thought on whether you should upgrade your camera or your computer. In my eye, I would say make sure that your computer is more than adequate for anything that you want to do with your camera. Yep. The way that I see it, is that when we used to do film photography, we would need an entire dark room to get the exposures that we wanted in our film. That was the final product. So now these machines, this piece of hardware, is just like your Lightroom. Funny that Adobe actually uses that Lightroom as the name for the program, when we used to play with dark rooms to expose our film. It was done like that for a reason, because what we used to have an entire room dedicated for is now just one application that fits in a very thin laptop that goes with you anywhere. So that's my thoughts on the matter. My name is Lewis, also known as Mr. Camera Junkie. And now we're going to go into C.I.T.Y.S.G.A.W, which is what I like I always say, the channels that I think you should go and watch. Okay, and this week's C.I.T.Y.S.G.A.W is none other than Mr. Philip Bloom. Now, let's move this out of the way. All right. And that's not the correct camera, so let's switch that over. These cameras have been switching themselves up a lot lately. All right, we're back. All right. C.I.T.Y.S.G.A.W, channels that I think you should go and watch. And this week we have none other than Philip Bloom. If you haven't heard of this man, I highly recommend you take a look at his channel, but make sure that you do it with time, because this man, the best word that I can put for him is epic, because everything that this man does as far as his YouTube channel is pretty much epic. There's one right here that I'm highlighting that's called DJI 3 the movie. Okay? Because it is a review of the DJI Mavic 3 and it is an hour and 12 minutes long. This guy puts so much detail into everything that he does. Solo film creator, lives with his cats, and produces amazing cinematic and film-like camera and drone reviews. If you haven't heard of him, I highly recommend you check out his stuff. But like I said, just make sure that you have popcorn in hand, sit down and relax, because he will put on a show. I can't. I find him to be hilarious. So, he's got that British or, like European dry humor, and I absolutely love his content. Um, I can't say enough about everything that he does, and there's just a certain je ne sais quoi about him personally that I really find endearing. So if you haven't heard of him prior to this, once again, I highly recommend you go check out Philip Bloom and everything that he does, and that is this week's C.I.T.Y.S.G.A.W, channels that I think you should go and watch. All right, that concludes another episode of the Camera Junkie Podcast. Thank you, as always, for listening, hanging out, and I will see you in the next episode. All right, and that is my recording for the podcast. Now to see and to check out everyone here in the chat. Let's see what we're doing here. Okay. All right, Mr. Paul Duncan is letting everyone know. Q colon helps me find any questions in case we have them, in case you have them, so that I can find them easily and answer them. All right. Sly is here in the house saying, "Hi, Louis, fellow junkies. I'm driving, so I'm listening, but I can't chat. Thank you for even commenting. Drive safe, and I'm glad to have you listening in as always." Robert says, "Oh, I admit I suffer from gas and it hurts my wallet, but warms my heart." It does, because like I said, I'm a camera junkie. I absolutely love all the latest and greatest gear and things like that. But I just want to inform everyone that it's not all about the camera body, right? We have to see the entire structure. And if you don't have, and you know what, and I didn't even touch into the fact that, data storage, like to make sure that you have an adequate system to back up what you're creating, because that's what I've been running into, to be one of the biggest things right now, which is the more that I create, even stuff that I am not yet able to edit. So there's things that I was like, okay, let me just record it and document it, and I'll figure it out afterwards, right? And just doing that and just offloading that data to see that is you run out of storage, you run out of data real quick. So whether it's a backup drive, a NAS, external storage, and me, I've been still working with external storage. I've been doing pretty good, especially when I think about it. Like, I got a terabyte Mac Studio, but then I have 8 terabytes connected to it via drives, SSDs, and things like that I can take with me partially. So, and I've done it. So a couple of weeks ago, I wanted to go spend time with my father, but still had work to do. I was able to grab my MacBook Air, disconnect the hard drive, and just connect that, open up my Final Cut Pro, file, and continue working on the laptop. Didn't have all the bells and whistles from my main machine, but it did allow me to work on the road, temporarily, and when I got back, I reconnected that drive and just kept going. So these are things that knowing on how you work might be beneficial, and that's why I knew that I didn't need to dedicate a lot of storage to my internal drive, because I would most likely be using exactly what I'm using, which are like external drives, just like such. Just double checking on Aiden. All right, Art Carrasco's here as well. It says, hey brother, just popping in to say hi. Happy birthday to the little man. And this is a great topic. Gotta run though. Have a great stream, hermano. Thank you very much. He says, I'm gonna catch the replay for sure. Absolutely, replay squad. Oh, Laura Williams is in the house. She's saying hi to everyone. Make sure we get that there. There you go. Saying hi to all. So Philip Bloom is brilliant. He's a great recommendation. He is, but like I said, like when you see that, like all of his videos are basically a half an hour plus, right? That's why I just said, don't expect this to be like a regular type of like, real fast, very informative type of YouTuber, right? He is a completely different creator, and he is someone that, to reference again, he makes the most out of anything that he gets. Like, he leaves me in awe because he's able to make the Insta360 Go video very cinematic, very entertaining, like dramatic is the word. He's able to dramatize a lot of the things that you can do with this equipment, but put it into like very poetic story type of form, and that's why I absolutely love his content. And he's in this week's C.I.T.Y.S.G.A.W. But I gotta tell you, man, I have over 340 channels that I'm subscribed to, I believe, and every week I just go and just scroll down the list to see who I'm gonna highlight this week. So pretty soon there's gonna be some that I just need to like knock, like off the list, just because they're blatantly obvious people that I've been following for years that you might have heard of, but definitely deserve to be on this list just the same way. So I always try to bring someone that is completely new, but then I also recognize that someone that might be not new to me could be absolutely new to you, right? And I might see them, but there are people, believe it or not, there's people who have never heard of Peter McKinnon. Like it may sound strange to us, the Camera Junkies, but definitely there's people out there that have never heard of that. So whether it be me or someone else or the YouTube algorithm, right? I want to be able to highlight the people who I find interesting, even if they have 10 million subscribers, right? Because they're there for a reason. So I try to highlight every and all creators, but I'm having a lot of fun with that series. C.I.T.Y.S.G.A.W is something that I really enjoy to, highlight for you guys, the community, someone that maybe you haven't heard of. Like I think I mentioned Mark Bennett from Camera Crisis like early on in his like YouTube career, and he's taken off and he's doing such a great job. But I find him also hilarious. And just to reference him once again, he's also a stand-up comedian who's like transitioning into this world of cameras and doing funny skits behind it, and that's why I think he's crushing. I think he's doing a great job, just like Casey from Camera Conspiracies. Also, just another one that says certain things that just make me laugh. Like I think the thing that I heard him say in the last couple of videos, and this is Casey from Camera Conspiracies, that I was just like, this is too funny, is that he keeps calling Olympus a sushi company. he's like they don't make cameras, they make sushi now. just I find that hilarious because for those of us who know, the ins and outs and the back end of a lot of these companies, you just can't help but laugh at something like that. I just find it hilarious. And you see that's someone else that I've referenced and mentioned so many times on the live streams, and yet He yet still hasn't made it to C.I.T.Y.S.G.A.W. So, but it doesn't look like we have any questions. So maybe I'll ask you guys a question. What computer hardware do you have currently? And if you can, leave it in the chat and let me know after, like with it, like what you're using, and if you find it to be enough or like you're lacking a bit on the computing side. Because like I'm gonna reference again, I remember when people would look at my stuff and be like, yo, did you get a new camera? Did you get a new lens? Did you get a... And I'm like, no, it's not that. It was me putting in the work and the effort of learning how to take my good photography and make it great images. And now, going back to someone else who was on C.I.T.Y.S.G.A.W before, Mr. Raphael Ludwig, he actually is always talking about get it right in camera and finesse it in post, and that's exactly right. And what I meant about all of this is that, even though we fix it in camera and we get it right, we still need to put that post finessing on it. Like even diamonds, they need to be cut and polished before they're found or given real value. So it's knowing that once you snap the picture or, finish hitting record, that's not where the finished product ends. And for me, take me for example, that my video editing skills and constantly practicing that aspect has led to, so many opportunities that now I am working as a video editor as my main gig. That allows me to stay in the creative space and hone in on my skills in so many different aspects instead of like what I was doing, because I sit here in awe still that a year ago I was stressing like the holidays, stressing like having to work and fix iPhones during the holidays to make ends meet. Yet, to be completely upfront with you guys, this was probably the worst time for cell phone repair. Coming from Black Friday all the way to the new year, this would kind of like halt on all, phone and tablet repairs, because two things: people were either trying to see if they were going to get a good deal on Black Friday, and if they weren't able to purchase something for themselves, they would hold off a month or so to see if Mr. Saint Nick and somebody within the family or something would happen, that they would somehow magically get an upgraded gift on something that they wanted. And if their phones had a crack or anything like that, that would just not be repairable until the new year, because if they didn't receive anything, then they would invest in fixing what they had. But if they got something new, then most likely they would hand down their prior device, and then that person would be the one calling to do a phone repair. And to think that for 5 months already, I have not done an iPhone repair. And I'm very happy about that. I'm like super ecstatic about the opportunities that I have, that I've taken advantage of this year, and so many more opportunities that are going to be opening up for this coming year. We just started December now, so we still have this month, but I'm already setting things up for 2023 to hit the ground running. And that's why with everything I'm recording the podcast, I still need, like, I'm mentioning to you guys that I'm doing this podcast, but I have so many things going on right now that I'm like I'm making it a challenge for myself because of everything else that I have going on. So everything that I'm doing right now feels like this extra challenge because there's so much on my plate. Yet I am so like happy to be in this position that I can't just. I'm extremely grateful and excited. So much to come. So much to come. And I can't wait for things to get rolling come 2023. Okay, John says 2021 MacBook Pro with M1 Max. Excuse me. So they bought it in 2021 in the year that has hiccuped once. I edited the last video last week. Okay, let me make sure I read that right. I know I got the specs right. I bought it in November 2021. In a year, it hasn't hiccuped once. I edit at least one video a week. Okay, that's great. Yeah, and that's what I said. Like, you're already there. Windows-based HP laptop recently upgraded and wishing I had switched to the Mac world at this point, and I'm running into CPI load issues. Oh, wow. That's what Kevin was saying. That sucks. But this is the whole thing. I mentioned this MacBook Air that I got. I got a crazy good deal. The 2020 MacBook Air, and I got it for $350 off Facebook Marketplace, which is like stupid. But the reason why I got such a good deal was because I knew what I was looking for. I knew I didn't need anything more than that. And because of it, it was like, now let's see what's the best deals to show up. So believe it or not, on both OfferUp and Facebook, whenever I start looking for something, I put these little alerts. So as soon as something hits the market, I get, informed or notified about it. So I'm privy, and that allows me to communicate with the sellers really fast. And if it's a deal that sometimes is like too good to be true, that's where we have the saying, strike the iron while it's hot. And that's what I was able to do with that MacBook Air. Been extremely happy with it. Yeah, it has now replaced my MacBook Pro that just sits in the back there. But to be honest with you, I was looking for it because I could no longer use my MacBook Pro. Now, what are my plans for the MacBook Pro? This is what I'm thinking about doing with it. Sounds blasphemous, so to speak, but I'm thinking I'm going to throw Windows on that MacBook because I really can't have it working the way it is, but it has pretty adequate software for a Windows-based PC. It literally has an Intel i7 that's a 8-core processor, 16 threads, 16 gigs of like unified memory, like not unified, but soldered on memory. So it's built in, not upgradable, but definitely runs faster, even though it's DDR3, kind of runs like DDR4. And it has a 1.5 gig graphics processor on it on board. So this could be a pretty decent like Windows PC, even though it's a Mac. And someone might say, why would you do that instead of running Windows? It's because the one thing about Apple software, and not so much their operating systems, but their iTunes software. So there does reach a level where you might have a new iPhone and you go to connect it to your computer, and the iTunes won't communicate correctly with your iPhone. You'd be able to use the iPhone the computer for pretty much every other task. You just won't be able to communicate and back up your iPhone with that computer. So when I used to have my shop, these types of issues would come up every once in a while. And the best fix for that case would to actually be to install Windows. Because if communicating to the internet and backing up your phone were the main reasons that you had the computer in the first place. Having an older Apple computer that wouldn't communicate to your iPhone kind of left you dead in the water. So we would put a Windows um, software in there. Once it would boot up, it will then be able to go to apple.com and download iTunes, the latest version running for Windows. And with the latest version of iTunes, would easily use that same computer to communicate to your latest and greatest iPhone, be able to back it up and do what you needed it to do, and also still be able to use it to navigate the web, so on and so forth. Use your Chrome browser and kind of revitalize old hardware. And I used to do that a lot because Apple's hardware is top notch. So even their Windows-based components really holds well to what you would require to get it done. And a lot of people also just like the aesthetic of the MacBook Pros laptops themselves. So it was kind of like getting the best for both of them. I was able to salvage their computer and get it to work with their phone that it wasn't communicating prior, but it would be running Windows on a Mac computer. So things that I used to do that I'm thinking I might do to this machine, just the same. And we'll see. Let me know what you guys think about that. All right. Randy says he's got a Mac Studio M1 Max basic with the Intel 6-core Mac Mini with Ecamm Live and 9 cameras in this office studio. You're up to 9 cameras? Wow. But they're not all connected, right? Because I think even me, at most I have is 5. Yeah, which is these 3, right? That what you're seeing. Aiden's camera. Let's check out Aiden's camera. Oh, he's hanging out over there. So Aiden's cam. And the overhead camera, which I don't have connected right now. I have it over here, but I'm actually like messing around because I am going to be switching the setup. This Mama Jamma right here, this full frame was what I was using for my overhead camera to hang right here. Boom. Heavy, big. Now I'm going to be using the new ZV-1F as my overhead camera. And it's going to be a lot easier because I only have to plug in one cable, one USB-C, plugs right in, communicates directly with my computer, and we're good to go. Just trying to clear my throat. All right. Robert here says he's got the MacBook Air. It shows. Okay, it says MacBook Air M1, 12 terabyte G drive. Nice. Panasonic GH6 Final Cut Pro, shooting ProRes with massive file sizes. Now you see, like, I would wonder what content are you making that you need to shoot ProRes? Because those file sizes are big. Now, I'm not one to say, but I'm just asking because I'm looking to step up my, 8-bit to 10-bit production. And that doesn't even have to do ProRes. But at that moment, I'm probably going to be doing ProRes just because I'm going to be doing the S-Log and start, upgrading my skills in that aspect. But I would love to know what type of workflow you're doing right now that requires ProRes. Says, cannot find the equivalent for the PC to use with Windows because Ecamm software is the best. Yeah. If the creator just decided also to use PC side, it would just jump onto it instantly. Yeah, but it's totally different. I know how you feel about Ken and Glenn actually creating a program for the Windows side, but it's something like that they don't know themselves. Like, not that they couldn't learn, but they grew up on like the Mac language, right? And when it comes to programming, it is a language. So it's like asking someone who speaks Mandarin to go speak Hindi. right? And to go over there and be like, communicate without a problem. It's way easier said than done. And that's where, like these guys, they are basically geniuses when it comes to like creating this. And me meeting them in person, I vouch for that. To see them like having a conversation with you and their eyes wander because they're programming like in their minds and they're building code. Just amazing, right? And to know that that's like a language speaking. So it's like, here's a good example, right? Here's a good example of putting it that way. Like, not only do you speak English, but you think English, right? When you have that narrative in your own mind, right? In your mind's eye, you're speaking to yourself in English. So imagine that out of that mind's eye, you would have to completely speak a different language and try to make that comparable to yourself. Imagine if every thought that you had in your mind was in a completely different language. Is as if somebody else were to be living in your head. So it sounds completely far-fetched, but that's the way that I understand having someone that speaks internal language on the Mac platform to just go create something on a Windows because it's a completely different code base. I hope that makes sense. Because not only that, so many people ask these dudes to make an app for the iPad, and it's a completely different language as well. More similar than Windows, but still completely different monster. All right. Kevin says, I was able to replicate most with OBS, but it's not as smooth. And a PETA Ecamm just makes it easy. Yep. And that's exactly what Ecamm does. It makes it extremely easy. And, Randall has been with me through a lot of these live streams from like the get-go, and it's just amazing. So thank you, Randall, because 2 years, man. 2 years we've completed on this journey. But he's been through the episodes where I was here just speaking to you guys, and my computer decided to reboot and say, hey, we're doing updates in the middle of my live stream, and just completely cut me out, shut me off, shut down the computer, reboot it, do the whole thing. And luckily, sometimes I was able to reconnect to the live stream, right? Sometimes it didn't happen. But a lot of those quirks happened with my Windows PC, and it's something that I can say has not even remotely happened since I moved to Ecamm. And I started on a much older Mac Mini, that I had, to just say, you know what, it's not the best computer, but I can dedicate it to live streaming. Didn't have anything else on it, right? But I was able to upgrade it a bit because, once again, on the older Intel machines, but I replaced the internal hard drive to a solid state drive to make that work faster, maxed out the RAM that it could get, and put new thermal paste so that it would cool as efficient as possible. And then when I would run Ecamm, I would run Ecamm as bare minimum as possible. I wouldn't ask it to do recordings locally to the computer because the computer itself didn't have the processing power to handle that. And I just asked it to take all of its resources to provide and pump out the best looking stream possible. And just with that, or those changes in alone, that changed so much, and it ran so much smoother, never had any issues. That then eventually it was just, okay, buy a $600 Mac Mini, that the M1, that ran circles around anything that I had. I still have it here off to my left, and it's an amazing computer. And bringing it full circle, bringing it back, why I said anything M1. You don't even need that, like the new M2. I do have an M1 Max, but that's also like extremely overkill, right? You don't need the Ultra. That's ultra kill. And like I come back to say, even the M1 MacBook Air or the M1 MacBook Pro with, how can I say, the M1 MacBook Pro with the two Thunderbolt ports, the one with the touch bar and everything like that, that is like just a basic M1 Mac Mini with a LCD and a fan on it. That is still such an amazing machine. Like 19 hours of battery life with full on power of this M1 in a case that's better designed to maximize the power of that chip. And hands down, that thing is killer. That thing's a no-brainer. So, yep. All right. Randall also says using Ecamm Live software, compressor utility with take a 20 gigabyte file and compress it to 3.2 gigabyte video file. See, Paul says he's got two M1 Mac Minis, both 16 gig, with one with 256 and the other one with 512 SSDs. And I know he's doing okay, but even he is waiting for the M2 MacBook Minis, just because he can. Right? Just because he knows that the Mac Minis are good enough, but he would also want just like a little bit of a level boost. And that's just, because you can. Kevin is in the house saying what's up to everyone. Randy also says 3 full frame Nikons, the Canon R7 with the Mac Mini on the Mac Studio. I have 2 Nikon ZFCs and a Z50, Sony A6100 for overhead shots, Canon R10. And he continues over here. He says the Nikon Z6 II, Z7 II, Z5, and the Canon R7 with the Mac Mini. The Sony ZV-E10, the Nikon Z30 cameras and mobile ones that I use for the studio. Says don't jinx myself about saying the reboot. No, man. Like the only time a Mac reboots is when I send it to, Sometimes I'm thinking this computer could use a reboot, right? And the computer is not going to tell me that. Only unless I say, you know what, go ahead. Which is another tip for you guys. Before every single live stream, I shut down my computer. I give it a minute to just woo-saw everything, reboot and start fresh, just to make sure that I don't have any problems. And this has to do probably with PTSD because of the times that I've, shut down with Windows computers. But knock on wood, never happened with any of my Apple computers. So, and Robert says narrative films that we have future proofing for distribution up to 5.7K with high-end CGI elements for online delivery. Wow. Okay. Then yes, you definitely have that type of workflow. Very impressive, sir. And that's cool to know a little bit more about what you do. Dude, that's nice. And yeah, and if you're dealing with up to 5.7K, absolutely. That is what you're going to be needing. So then I would love to know, maybe for next time, you can let me know or leave in the comments what you're using to back up all of this data, because I am definitely looking either into a NAS or a LAS, for those who not familiar, network attached storage or a local attached storage. And I don't really think that I need it as far as, over the air for it to be an actual NAS, but I'm going to look into it, because if it's something that could benefit me in the future, that especially the more that I want to be mobile, to be able to do the work on the road, to be able to have a NAS located here that I can still access from anywhere in the world, could be something that I should be looking into. But everyone, we have done it once again. Another successful Camera Junkie live stream. And I want to thank all of you, as always, for hanging out. You guys make this the place to be. And I can't thank you enough. So, everyone, this is the conclusion of this week's episode. Next week, we're going to be doing it all over again. Same bad place, same bad channel, same bad time. Right here on the Camera Junkie live stream. I'm just racking my brain right now to see if there's anything else that I wanted to mention before I go. But no, I think that's it. Next week, we're going to continue. I'm going to see about putting together everything as far as the podcast. Like I mentioned, that yeah, I'm putting a lot of things on my plate right now. And one of the biggest things is the fact that I'm starting this podcast, right? The podcast is the one thing that I'm like, you know what? I said I was going to do it and I don't want to let it slip through the cracks. I need to get on the ball. I need to make my trailer and I need to post that up and I need to get that going so that come like, the 1st of January or, come this new year that my podcast is actually up and running and I'm going to need to do the best that I can to promote it in the short time that I have. So I need to get that on there. Doc, Doc is saying, yeah, Doc said it right. Pancetta. Let me put that on there. There you go. Pancetta. Absolutely. But as always, thank you all for hanging out, spending the time here with me. I hope you all have a great, great week. Be safe out there with all of your holiday shopping and everything and all the, errands that we need to run. And I can't wait to see you all next week. See you next time.